Lawmakers put increased perks bill on hold. Members of Parliament yesterday shelved passing the Parliamentary Service Bill 2018, which seeks to increase their perks. The move came after the House's legal office advised them that the bill can be passed only after the High Court rules on the constitutional application filed by the PSC against the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. If the bill were to become law, it would ensure that lawmakers in the next parliament get a government vehicle fueled and maintained by the taxpayer, a car loan, a house allowance, a kitty in all the 290 constituencies for monitoring and evaluating the national government projects, as well as public participation in parliamentary affairs. I'll begin with you on Wangari. You're in the existing parliament, and many wondering, so what was this? Is this another push by MPs to pay themselves? The thing is, this is actually going to benefit the next parliament. But you said there was a misconception with this particular bill.
In fact, you know, when I look at even this story, I know Ibrahim Moruko is quite a good journalist. And I really don't know where you guys got these stories. I even doubt the journalists who have written this story have read the bill. Because I have read the bill from Article 1 to Article last. I've read the memorandum, I've read the miscellaneous, I've read it article by article. And what is shocking me is that even the president, even the former prime minister has commented on it. And I'm wondering, are we talking about the same bill or there's another bill? Seriously speaking, because, you know, we cannot just go with what is in the media. I have a copy of the bill even on my phone. I can show you. You will read it for yourself, Victoria. And I think what is more important for me is that this bill, the current Parliamentary Service Act that is in use today, is an act of 2000. It was enacted in the year 2000. What that means is that it has not been aligned by the Constitution. It had used the previous Constitution, Article 45A and Article 45B. This one now aligns it to the Constitution 2010, Article 127, because Article 127 actually now establishes the Parliamentary Service Commission just as Judicial Service Commission, just as the other commissions. Right. And the most important thing is to align it with the Constitution. And I think that is what basically it has done. In fact, I had to peruse to find what these packs are, what are you talking about? Because I've not seen it. And the one benefit I saw that is accrued to a member of parliament directly is the issue of diplomatic passport. That is in that bill. That I will tell you, because it was there initially, then it was removed, so MPs don't get diplomatic passports, but this one now guarantees that the speaker, the clerk, and the members and their spouses will get diplomatic passport. That is something, yes, you can debate. That is something you can debate. Our issue of our salaries and remuneration, we may not even need to actually put it in this bill. It would maybe come in another way because it is not in this bill. I know members have complained about certain issues, just as teachers complain, as doctors complain. Not all of them are carried, by the way. If we had our way, I am sure we would have done already injustice and added something on top. But it doesn't work like that anymore because there is an SRC in place that works for the remuneration of members. That is why you'll see even Parliamentary Service Commission going to court for an interpretation of the role SRC can play in ensuring their packs are in place. You can do that, but you cannot overrule SRC. Otherwise, we would have done it very easily. But it's not as easy as it used to be. I mean, the members of parliament a while ago are never paying actual taxes to the government. Today, we pay 30%, whether you like it or not. Nobody likes paying taxes, even in the biblical times. It's never an easy thing to actually part with money. Even Kenyans, you saw the uproar in terms of paying tax, even the VAT or any other tax. No one likes paying tax. Members of parliament are not excluded, but the law is very clear on how it should be. We will pay 30% whether we like it or not. Right. So in terms of the misconception, I totally agree. I think even the president, even the leader of ODM has been totally misled about this bill, because I have read it and I can assure you, I can dare anyone to actually quote for me any one clause from that PSC bill that talks to PACs, that talks to entitlements, that talks to house allowance or even medical allowance, because it is nothing. There is nothing like that in that bill.
I think also people were wondering, there's a lot of interest in this particular bill as compared to the gender bill, which hardly had quorum. So they wondered, is this because of the interest that members of parliament have in the perks that come out of this?
It's not even the perks, because our PSC is what governs. It's what governs us in parliament. It is basically our employer. They are the ones who pay our workers. They are the ones who pay ourselves. So you'd expect the interest to be there. You know, natural to be there, to be able to push for their interest. That is natural. But I can tell you the interests that have been quoted in the media, Victoria, and I can dare anyone to show me any one clause that talks to that. The packs, the allowances, the wives for medical allowances, the houses. I mean, I'm reading it in the media. I'm seeing it in people talking about it. But I also don't agree with the direct interference of Parliament. I think it is not fair for the executive to actually tell us, you don't pass it, or you pass it. I mean, recently we had debate on the VAT, or on the tax bill, or the finance bill that had the VAT. Most of us stood with the public in terms of, we felt that we had issues. Personally, I had issues, especially with the house taxation program that had been put in that finance bill. I opposed it. And I opposed it for a reason. And I'll still stand with the reasons I opposed it. And that time when you oppose, you're told you're against the president. So I think the president in this one, he must give Parliament the leeway to do their job. Not to say you guys don't pass, and if you pass, I won't pass. It is fine. You'll have your moment. The moment we pass the bill and you don't like it, which you'll be informed by the Attorney General, who is the person who scrutinizes bills, then you have the right to reject it as the president and return it with a memorandum of why. But the preemptive debate must really be stopped, because Parliament must also be allowed some autonomy to do their work, legislative, and be able to make laws as has been granted in the Constitution.
Is the executive overstepping in this case?
Yes, yes, and it is the same bad manners I keep on talking about, because at independence, the three institutions, the judiciary, the executive and Parliament, were separate. But increasingly after the dissolution of CADU in 1964 and the formation of de facto one-party state of Kenya, the executive started growing into areas of Parliament and also areas of judiciary. So either the president was like the final authority when it comes to issues of law, issues of policy, and also issues of direction. To the extent that when I was first elected a member of Parliament, 1989, we were a department in the office of the president as Parliament. We were paid through the office of the president, and the office of the president had a say. I remember we could go for 3-4 weeks without our normal sitting allowance or normal allowances or even salary, because the office of the president had certain specific purposes. It is subsequent to that, and even telephone call to your constituency, to the district commissioner, you had to pay. So there were two missing charges: food that you eat in the canteen, and many people are saying Parliament is 5-star. Members of Parliament pay for that food. And any telephone between yourself and your constituents, you had to pay. There was no allowances for that. House allowances, it was not there. It was only 2,000. They were calling it mini house allowance, which was not enough to secure a home in Nairobi. So literally some of us used to come on Tuesday, and by Wednesday afternoon, if you don't have any business in the house, you go back to the constituency because you could not afford to stay in Nairobi. Now, what am I saying? If I was re-elected today, I have a house in Nairobi at least. But think of that member of Parliament, even if they were to talk about housing, who has just been elected for the first time, coming to Nairobi probably for the first time, and many members of Parliament have never even stepped in the chambers or even anywhere around Parliament by the time they are elected. And you tell him that you cannot get house allowance or you cannot get a house, because you either have a house allowance or you are given a house by government. Even about vehicles, even a district officer has a vehicle assigned to him. How come that you think a member of Parliament is such a minute individual that does not deserve a vehicle? And that's a public vehicle. It can be residual in terms of depreciation, such that at the end of your term, you can choose to buy at book value, or you choose to leave it for it to be sold and for a new vehicle to be bought for a new member of Parliament. Now, what am I saying? This is institutional overreach by the executive, and if it is not stopped now, it is going to grow until the executive forgets that when the president is elected, a member of Parliament is also elected in that small jurisdiction called Cherangani or Gilgil, and they have a right, direct mandate from the people. It is not mandate of the people through the president. So this is something that I think the executive ought to learn. And I saw that affront on the eve of the last elections, where salaries were slashed from 751 to 540 for members of parliament on the eve of election. So either new members, people like Wangare were earning certain perks, now they came down. Apart from taxation, they had already been slashed as they were away campaigning to come back to parliament. This is something that was done purposely by the executive, knowing that members of parliament were not in any way to complain about slashing of taxes. That is the first time somebody's salary is reversed, whether it is a new contract or an old contract. No salary is supposed to be reversed. If you are earning 10,000, tomorrow you are not supposed to earn 7,000, whether there are austerity measures or not. So what am I saying? It is a clash of institutions. The executive ought to stick to their lane. The members of parliament, they need to have their independence. And also judiciary needs to have their space for purposes of coexistence as the three arms of government.
So a need for autonomy in the three arms, as you're saying. I'm looking at, because every time this issue comes up, when it comes to perks, salaries, or allowances for MPs, the argument is our MPs are some of the highest paid in the world. When you look at, in comparison to others, even in the West and more developed countries. I'm looking at a clause here from that particular bill, clause 11A. The Commission shall, pursuant to Article 127(6) of the Constitution, to enable the members discharge their responsibilities effectively and for efficient functioning of Parliament, make the following services and facilities available to MPs. A, medical cover. B, official transport, or in lieu of thereof, transport or mileage allowance, suitable housing accommodation for the speakers, leaders, majority, minority parties in both houses, in lieu thereof, housing allowances pursuant to Section 31, suitable housing accommodation for members of Parliament, mortgage, car grants, car loans, domestic and international travel allowances, and any other service or facility. So this now handles that issue. It's very vague. It doesn't give specifics in terms of what does that mean in terms of a car loan, a car grant. So it's there.
I think what you're talking about, Victoria, if you read Article 127 of the Constitution, the one responsibility of the Parliamentary Service Commission is to facilitate members to perform their duties. And already some of the issues you're reading are there today. Because we're having a medical cover. Are we not having a medical cover? We had a car grant that was in the public domain. I mean, there's nothing new, but have we anchored it in accordance to the Constitution? If you ask me, no. Because what has been there is for the old Constitution. What we have now done is break it down. And most of those things are not new. We already have a mortgage system, if you want. And we get one of the best rates in terms of the market rates that are in the country for banks and other institutions. So if you ask me, for me, the most critical thing is, have we anchored it in accordance to the law? And I would say no. This is what we need to do, so that every time you come, you have a bill to work under. The Judicial Service Commission, they know. Every time you are a new judicial officer, you know what exactly you're working under. The Teacher Service Commission, you know what you're working under. So in terms of demonizing this bill, I totally don't agree with it, because show me where we have said we have raised salaries from 500 to 700.
So this is not a push to increase these existing allowances?
In fact, the SRC is still existent, is it not? It will be existent. So it will still do the work that has been granted to the Commission by the Constitution. So I think it has really been misunderstood, to my understanding. And the problem and the tragic thing is that what was picked the first time by the media is what people consume. It is very hard now to come. We look defensive when we now explain the actual content. We look like we are defending ourselves, which is not right. We have been put there purposely, whether by deliberate action or by design or by default. But we now look like we are defending our position. But I think it's really fair that even members of Parliament are given a fair hearing. If anything is unconstitutional, there is even an option of going to court to challenge a bill that has been passed by Parliament. The President also has I would say, a veto limited veto power, because he can choose to disagree and not sign and give the reason. So there are many avenues. Even bills that we have passed in this Parliament have been challenged in court. Some have actually been withdrawn or suspended or even repealed by the courts. It's possible. So in case of the discontent, in case something is outside the Constitution, the leeway and the appeal mechanism is properly spelled in the law.
Okay.
You know the tradition of lawyers, Victoria, and I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of imagination. The tradition of lawyers is that they tend to be repetitive for avoidance of doubt. so that in case you are in doubt, they are repeating what that section 127 is saying for purposes of anybody reading the bill, not doubting what is the intention of this bill.
Right.
And I'm sure they have said it in the articles and memoranda at the back of the bill. So the issue is they are anchoring it on the Constitution. They are aligning it with the Constitution. They are not even anchoring. They are aligning it with the Constitution for purposes of ensuring it is not going to be tampered by any individual or any institution. Otherwise, it is not that they are going to raise those things.